Hello, and welcome to the C3 Method podcast with your host, Robert Polenic. Our goal is to educate you on everything health and fitness related with a clear, concise, and customized approach. We want you to know what you need to know and how to apply it in a way that fits you best. Today's podcast number 2310, and this is the Random Question Podcast for the week of August 18th, 2025. If you would like to submit a question for the podcast, you can do that on any social media platform that we're on. I'll get a notification that you wrote something. You can also go to our website, which is c3method.com, and the 3 is spelled out T-H-R-E-E, so C-T-H-R-E-E method.com. You can submit a question there as well. You can also check out our services and other things that we do if you'd like to. But let's get into this week's questions. The first question we have is a nutrition question. I listened to a podcast recently that was discussing carbohydrate intake relative to performance and muscle growth. They said that eating carbs pre and post training were necessary for maximal performance, but then also for maximal muscle growth post training. For clients who train first thing in the morning or at the end of the day, how should I recommend they manage carb intake? The morning clients would struggle to get carbs in pre-training, and the late night clients would risk gaining fat by eating carbs before bed. Correct? Okay, we'll go through and answer all this. There's a couple layers there. So eating carbohydrate pre and post training for performance and muscle growth. It depends on the type of training the person does. If they are an endurance trainer, maybe they actually will use fats rather than carbohydrates. But if we're looking at most people's gym activities, lifting weights, that kind of stuff, carbohydrates are helpful. They do give you energy. I think about putting gas in a car. You can't drive the car without some gasoline. Unfortunately, we can move our body before we put fuel in it. That often requires massive amounts of caffeine, which can then mess up our sleep and increase cortisol production, which is like a stress hormone, which kind of gets in the way of maximal body composition, fat loss, and eventually sleep. And then also, if we just exercise in the morning without intaking any carbohydrates, we do increase our natural production of cortisol, stress hormone, and it has negative impacts. People often don't recognize that. So they'll do fasted workouts and then wonder why joints are a little sore. They have low energy during the day. Their performance is kind of like plateauing. And then all of a sudden you start giving them a little bit of carbohydrates and all the problems go away. So carbohydrates pre-training definitely do help. Carbohydrates post-training, the aspect of that would be related to muscle growth is that carbohydrates post-training can help shuttle protein into cells faster. When I was doing my master's in nutrition, my thesis, which was a 50-page paper, required over 200 peer-reviewed research articles to be cited, which means I read a hell of a lot more than 200. And it was on the anabolic window, how important it is to consume protein and or carbohydrates post-training, and if it is important, what time frame. Within 5 minutes, 20 minutes, 1 hour, is it, what type of protein, like whey protein, casein protein, is there a blend, is that important? Should we have carbohydrates? If so, how much and what type? So I did all of that, absolutely loved it. I'm a big nerd and I love that content. And unfortunately, the answer is eating something is better than nothing. And calorie control post-training is more important than whether you have carbohydrates or not. And what I mean by that is if somebody's trying to lose body fat and they're consuming protein post-workout simply to make sure that they recover and mitigate muscle loss, they don't need the carbohydrates. Their body will soak in the protein eventually. It'll take care of its thing. So muscle repair and muscle growth is a process that can take 12, 24, 36, 48 hours, depending on the intensity of the style of training. It's not something where, okay, if I don't consume something in 20 minutes post-workout or even an hour, I'm going to miss all of these benefits. So you don't need to have the carbohydrates to shuttle the protein in to maximize muscle growth if those carbohydrates would negatively impact having a caloric deficit in order to promote the goal of fat loss. So if your goal is fat loss, the carbohydrates aren't important enough to risk losing the benefit of the entire goal. Can you account for them in your calorie intake? Absolutely, totally fine. And if you train in the beginning of the day, you're going to want some carbohydrates after training because you have the whole rest of the day to make it through. But at the end of the day, if you train in the evening and you want to go home, just get some protein in your face and go to bed, you don't need the carbohydrates if you don't want them. But you're also going to be extremely depleted of carbohydrate storage, which is a term called glycogen, which is we store carbohydrates, sodium, and water in our muscles, and that's kind of fuel for the muscles. If glycogen stores are emptied and you consume carbohydrates, the body is going to fill up the glycogen stores before it would then use the carbohydrates converted over to body fat for future energy. So there is a window, there's an allotment of carbohydrates that you can consume post-training, even if you're about to go to bed, that will simply just go to glycogen storage, not fat storage. This does require that we're very controlled with our carbohydrate intake. So the person needs to be counting calories, counting carbohydrates, measuring all their foods. If they're not doing that, then it might be better just to say skip carbohydrates and focus on proteins. And that might just be a better answer for them, so that way they don't worry about gaining body fat if they're not going to control their markers and measure things out. Everybody I work with is a little bit different because they're all across the spectrum from beginners all the way to professional athletes. So I like knowing all of this because there are some people certain answers apply and other people certain answers apply. So I know that my answers can seem kind of broad-based, but that's because my client base is broad-based. It's important to know what's most important and not get too lost in the details and miss the big picture of our goal. So there we go. So we talked a little bit about that. The specific questions is how would they recommend carb intake? If somebody trains in the morning, you can do fast digesting carbohydrates. And I usually like to do them in the form of liquids because it hydrates the person as well. One of the simple, quick, and easy things is like Gatorade powder. I know that there's arguments over types of sugars like dextrose and all this other stuff. I'm aware of it. But for most people, none of that stuff really matters much. They don't need to have this, $70,000 supplement that costs them $5 a workout. You can get away with just some fruit juice or some sugared drink, like a Gatorade powder is super cheap, or if they just want to buy Gatorade bottles, they can do that. Like I said, fruit juice is fine. You can also just have water or like low sugar intake, like coconut water, almond milk, soy milk. You can mix any of those things. Like one option is unsweetened almond milk. You can blend that with some protein powder and throw a couple pieces of fruit in there. And that's a nice, quick, easy shake that they can drink. It hydrates them, gets some energy in, and then they can still work out. So I would still recommend some type of carbohydrate pre-workout. Just make it super fast to digest, super easy to consume. Don't have them consume a large volume of food in order to get those calories in. You can even do what runners do, those little like gel packs where it's like 30 grams of sugar in like this one little pack and they can just squeeze that in their mouth and go. Something that quick and simple. Just the idea is make it easy, make it convenient so it can be consistent. But we definitely do want to consume carbohydrates pre-training. And then post-training, absolutely, because they have the whole rest of the day to go if they're training in the morning. So you can have them eat their normal, like whole food type carbohydrates and fuel throughout the rest of the day. How I would recommend carbohydrate intake for evening clients is hopefully we're eating all throughout the day and their meal before training would be carb dominant, not fat and protein, but make sure it's carb and protein. And then they use the carbs while they train. And then if they want to really stay lean, I would skip the carbohydrates after the training or make sure they measure them and we keep them at a submaximal amount so it only replenishes glycogen. But you can replenish glycogen in the morning with breakfast. So I really think it's okay to skip the carbohydrates post-training and then refill their carbohydrates throughout the whole next day so that way they still have good performance for the next evening training session. If they do want to have carbohydrates after training, totally fine. Just make sure you measure it and factor it into your total daily intake. That's it. I mean, that might be too simple, but that's what I recommend for clients. Is morning clients? Yes, we do want to have carbohydrates, pre and post. Pre training, make them super easy, super simple. If you can, make it fluid so that way it hydrates them as well. For evening people, hopefully they're having carbohydrates leading into their workout. Make sure their meal before the workout is carbohydrate based. After the workout, they don't have to have carbohydrates. They're still going to have good muscle repair and growth, assuming they consume enough protein before they go to bed. And then they have the whole next day to continue to build and repair muscle with a mixture of protein and carbs during the day. So that's how I recommend it. And then real quick is we talked about at the end of their statement, they said, and late night clients would risk gaining fat by eating carbs before bed. That, again, that is only if it's eaten in excess. Make sure that if you're going to have carbs after training, it's totally fine, not a negative at all, assuming they're controlled within your total calorie intake. So that way you know there's not an excess for the day overall. Cool. Okay. Next question we have. How significant is carb specificity? My nutrition program calls for brown rice, but I hate the texture and the taste. But my trainer said if I really wanted the results, I would just eat it. Jeez, a whiz. And then gave suggestions for different spices and flavorings. But I still find myself avoiding that meal, which then causes me to eat random foods off my program, leading to me overeating. Would it mess up my progress if I were to eat white rice instead? No, and your trainer's a jerk, big fat jerk. So I'm not their trainer, just to clarify. The trainer is just, I would assume it's a lack of knowledge. I don't know why in the world it would need to be brown rice for any reason. Even if you have a nutrition, like disease, disorder, digestive issue, there's probably other options. I don't know of any disease in which brown rice is the only carbohydrate you can have. That's ridiculous. So I don't know why they would, that's rude of them to say that, and they're uneducated. So maybe you might want to consider working with somebody else. Brown rice versus white rice. There is slight differences. You can look at digestion rate. If you do blood glucose monitoring, you might have a different like glucose spike afterwards. But none of that really matters much, assuming total calories are controlled, protein is controlled, you're eating the right amount of carbohydrates at that meal. Like there's really a ton of carbohydrate options. I've helped people get super shredded on stage, winning local national shows, getting pro cards, and I didn't care if they ate, brown rice, white rice, sweet potato, white potato, quinoa. I mean, I don't care. Any of that stuff is fine. As long as it's consistent, as long as we see how the body responds and we manipulate that over time, there's no need for a person to be forced to eat brown rice. And then I've also helped performance athletes all the way from, high school athletes up to professional athletes. And there's certainly no need whatsoever for there to be brown rice only compared to something, say, white rice. So carb specificity to that sensitivity is not really important. There's no need for you to be forced to eat brown rice. Especially like you said, if it's going to cause you to skip the meal and or go off your program, it's very unreasonable and short-sighted for the trainer to just say, if it mattered to you, you would just eat it. That's a very jerkish response. So you can definitely substitute carbohydrates. Just track and see how your body responds. If you find that, okay, I ate white rice instead of brown rice, and I'm a little hungrier leading into my next meal, then maybe you need to substitute some of the white rice calories for a little bit of fats in that meal. So take some of the white rice away and maybe put a tablespoon of an oil into the meal, and that'll slow down the digestion, and then that might better match your digestion rate for your next meal. So there's some playing around you might need to do in order to make the substitution, and maybe the trainer's too lazy to do that, so that's why they want you to just eat the brown rice. But that is unnecessary. There's tons of options that you could eat. Cool. The next question we have, we're going to move into our training section. This person asked, they didn't really ask a question, they just made a statement. It says, exercise selection for upper-lower split for bodybuilder. Okay, so if they're doing upper body training sessions and lower body training sessions and they're a bodybuilder, that is something that I see more common in today's culture. We used to have like the bro split, which was chest on Monday, back on Tuesday, legs on Wednesday if the person did them, and then shoulders on Thursday, arms on Friday. That was like typical bro split. And then all of a sudden it started getting into like more of a push-pull legs. And then there were people who were saying, okay, well, on this day I'm going to do chest and biceps, but on that day I'm going to bring biceps in before hamstrings. So people started playing around with it more. And one of the ones you'll see now is that people are doing upper body, lower body splits. So maybe they're training 4 days a week. So they have an upper body, lower body day off, upper body, lower body 2 days off, that kind of split. If I think of the upper body, what I would have clients do is well, I'll tell you the order. So I literally have it written down for one of the clients I have who follows this, is we do rear delts first. There's an A and a B, by the way. So we have an upper body version A, an upper body version B, a lower body version A, a lower body version B. So upper A, if you want to write this down, is rear delts, a row, a pull up or pull down. Then we do chest flies, chest press, mid delt raise, and biceps. Sounds like a lot, but for these we typically only do 2 hard sets per exercise, maybe a third in an area where they're lacking, and it's a lagging body part, we want to bring it up. But those are the movements we cover in upper A. Upper B is a straight arm pull down, then a pull down or pull up, a row, chest fly, chest press, mid delt raise, and biceps. And that does tend to be the order for most people. I might flip some of that around. Like I like to start with back, then chest, then shoulders, then biceps. And the reason why is people's back is usually a lagging body part compared to their chest. So out of the 2 more dominant muscle groups of the day, back and chest, where we're going to be demanding the most from the body, we want to start with those compared to shoulders and biceps. And we want to start with the one that we feel is the weakest in regards to development. So that would be back, then chest. So it goes big, big, small, small. And out of the big bigs, we want to go with the weakest one first, the lagging one first. And out of the smalls, we would do the same. But that's the purpose and the order of upper A and upper B. Then lower body A and lower body B. Lower A is hamstring curls, leg extensions, a quad dominant compound like a hack squat or like front squat. Then a unilateral compound, think of lunges, and then calves. And then lower body B is adductor, leg extension, leg curl, a hinge, so RDL. Then a leg compound, which would be like leg press, anything where it feels like it's even throughout the whole leg, and then calves. And the structure of all of that is, again, where we kind of change our focus from A and B, where if a person, like one workout's more quad dominant, the other one's more hamstring and glute dominant, one is going to have like adductors built in as an isolation, the other one has adductors built in for that unilateral movement. So it just targets the muscles in a little bit of a different way and make sure that through the course of A and B, we target the muscles as balanced as we can. And then for each person I work with, we would personalize the order and switch things around based on their anatomy. But that is the structure that I use for upper and lower. We have the A and the B for each, and then we use the exercises we select. It depends on the person, depends on the situation. We'll change the exercises, usually somewhere between every 4 to 8 weeks. I find that if you stick for longer than 8 weeks, it's really hard to make weight and or rep progressions while maintaining good quality technique. So I like to switch things between every 4 to 8 weeks, depending on the person, depending on the situations. That's a preference for me. We might find that somebody really likes one movement. They've been progressing well with it. So maybe instead of at 8-week mark, instead of having it in the middle of the workout, maybe we'll move it to the beginning of the workout. Then all of a sudden that allows them increased progressions. So every 8 weeks, we might not do all brand new movements. We might just simply switch the placement of some of the movements, and that can help us still push progressions. Cool. Next question we have, when should you add fasted cardio during a competition prep? Assuming this is like a contest prep for an aesthetic athlete, fasted cardio. There's a couple approaches. If somebody has a long way to go, they have a lot of weight to lose, we might actually start with some cardio right at the very beginning of the process. Right at the beginning of the prep, we're going with our metabolism is the most responsive because they've been eating off season or eating whatever the hell they've been eating. Assuming they've been eating at maintenance calories or overeating, and like in a growth phase, their metabolism is going to be super responsive. So we might want to bring calories down a little bit, hit cardio right away, get a huge drop, and then all of a sudden we can lessen the intensity as we get closer to the contest. It allows for their cortisol to be better, their nervous system stress to be better. They're going to come into the show not as depleted, not as miserable. So that might be one approach. The other approach that you commonly see is people start the diet and then they're like, oh crap, I'm kind of behind. Let me add the fasted cardio in. That's a bummer, but that is commonly what happens. To avoid that, one of the things that people struggle with that might cause that to happen is they're coming from a period of just ridiculously inconsistent eating, and it was causing them to be overweight. And they're like, you know what, this is stupid. I want to do a diet. I want to get in better shape, and I might as well do a show as a motivator. Well, the downside is their metabolism is not maximized when we start the process. If they've been eating inconsistently, you need to have the first, it depends on the person, depends on the situation. But let's say the first 4 weeks of the diet is simply just to kind of get their metabolism in a healthy place, get them to be consistent, and see how responsive the body is. And then you would want to go ahead and start adding the cardio so that way you can pull it back later on. Typically, it's better to add it earlier than you would think and then not need it at the end. That would be a good approach. I do have clients though where I will hold off on adding cardio till the very end because we might only end up needing 10 minutes 4 times a week and it's not going to cause them a lot of stress. But if you're coming from the contest world and your trainer or the people you've learned from are old school, you might be used to like an hour of fasted cardio in the morning and then an hour at night plus your weight training. That's all absolutely ridiculous and completely unnecessary. So if you're used to that large amounts, first of all, you don't need to do that. And then second of all, that's the kind of stuff that if you're going to do that, you got to do that early so you can taper off as you get closer to a show. The people who I add fasted cardio by the end of the process, it really is like 20 minutes or less 4 times a week. It's not enough to cause major stress, so we don't have to worry about that as we get closer into the show. Awesome. Okay. Next question we have is a mindset question. How do you manage, let me start it again. How do you manage mental burnout during an extended diet, parentheses 16 plus weeks? So there's many reasons why people can mentally burn out. That's why I'm hesitating to answer that. Food variety is very helpful, making sure you don't feel like you have to eat the same exact foods all the time. So for example, the brown rice versus white rice person. We want to have as much food variety as we can. That can allow you to not feel overly restricted. You can also do caloric cycling. So some days you get to eat more, some days you get to eat a little less. That allows it to feel more exciting, a little bit different all the time. Training styles and training strategies can change over the course of 16 weeks, and that can kind of refresh things and make it feel new. You can also, you can start a diet actually like really aggressive and then pull back, and that makes it feel different. So you think about mental burnout as if you start aggressive when you're most motivated and excited to do it. Then as you would start to say, okay, crap, I'm getting tired, this is kind of miserable, you can pull back the intensity, and then that lessens the burnout. Now, when your willpower, your discipline, your motivation is low, the intensity of what you have to do isn't as high. So sometimes people start out the opposite. They start with small changes when they really want to be crushing everything, and that makes small progressions. And then all of a sudden when the progressions plateau, they're then asked to do more and more and more, but by then they're tired. They've already been disciplined for 8, 12, up to 16 weeks, and they're just not in this mental state anymore to want to push that aggressive. So one thing you could do is just start aggressive and then taper down, and that would help to prevent mental burnout. Having accountability, having somebody to share the process with is super helpful as well. Obviously, I have that for my clients. That's part of why they pay, is to not only know what to do, but to have somebody follow along with them and share in the journey and answer questions along the way. You can create an account on social media. People do this all the time. Post your lifts, post your progress. just share with the world, share your journey with the world. That helps with a little bit of accountability and excitement, and that can help push you through some of those days you don't want to do something. You're like, oh, well, I have this streak of posting certain things at certain times. I don't want to lose that streak. And that could be a motivator. So there are some ideas that can help. And then also regeneration weekly of a motivating statement, quote, video. I use the home screen of my phone to have some things that motivate me. And when I was younger, doing bigger, more aggressive diets, and I struggled with the motivation, I would find like a YouTube video that motivated me, and I would watch that every morning for a week. And then the next week, like on a Sunday, I would search for another one. And in the act of searching for another one, it motivated me, got me excited, and then I'd watch that again, for a whole week. So that was something I used a lot that worked really well for me. But there are a list of suggestions, and hopefully some of them will help. The last question we have is a business question. I struggle with getting referrals from my current clients. I read a business book about the importance of referrals from current clients and how that should drive business growth. But since I started tracking that metric, I've only gotten 2 clients from current client referrals in the past 4 months. Is this a normal rate? If not, how can I increase the rate? Thank you. It depends on how many clients you have. So whether that's normal or not, I'm not sure. I don't know how many clients you have, but it is extremely helpful when the people that you already help you and refer new people. The more they can post on social media, the more they share their process with other people, the better results they get, the more other people notice. So when you have somebody who sings your praises and is happy, and people can see that energy, get attracted by that energy, that definitely does help grow the business in regards to referrals. What you can do to help facilitate that is maybe a monthly newsletter. You can send out a text or an email to clients, and each month have something that's beneficial. Like, what did you learn as a trainer in the last month? What's a book you read, or a podcast you listened to, or a video you watched? And you're like, hey, everybody, I want to share this with you. This is something I think is really cool. I haven't talked about this with everyone yet, so I want to share it with everybody. And by the way, if you know anybody that needs any help, make sure you refer the business, So doing a monthly reminder that is paired with a value that you give can be a good way of doing it. Some people will also do referral like discounts, whereas if you refer a friend, you get 25% off your next month fee, or something like that. So those are 2 common ways. You can also do social shares. I don't know what the proper term is, but on social media, if you make a post and say, hey, to all my current clients, if you don't mind, can you please share this week or this month? This is super important for me. I really want to grow the business. I want to help more people. Can you participate? Can you share this on your social media? That's another way of doing it as well. Just communicating. I mean, if they're working with you, they're invested into you, you're invested into them. There's definitely some kind of friendship or connection or mutual feelings of wanting each other to succeed. If you put it in their mind that you would like the referrals, they're going to be more likely to do it. Maybe they think you're busy, so make sure you're not complaining all the time that you're too busy. They're not going to refer you if they think you're too busy. So being vocal, being open, being vulnerable does help to make sure that they know that that's something that you want. And if you're supporting them, they're going to want to support you. So probably it's going to partner pretty well. So there are some ideas, and hopefully all of them or one of them can be helpful. Awesome. Okay, well, that is all of our questions for this week. If you would like any help with nutrition or training, that's what I do. You can reach out on our website, which is www.c3method.com. The 3 is spelled out T-H-R-E-E, so it's C-T-H-R-E-E method.com. You can sign up for a consultation. I'll chit-chat with you, talk about your goals and how we can work together to achieve them, to see if we would have a good partnership on that. You can sign up for that through the website. And then if you need anything at all, just reach out on whatever platform you're on and I'll find it and I'll get back to you. You can also follow us on social media, on Instagram and YouTube under the name C3 Method. I'm posting new and different content on there all the time. So that's a great extra resource for information. Okay, that's everything. If you like the podcast, if you find it helpful, please share it. The more people we share it with, the more people can help. And as always, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for listening.